This is the Variety Sports Network, created for the fans, by the fans. Now to your host of tonight's show.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to week 2 of Saturday Showdown, and we are live from the home field studio. Oh, sorry. All right, restart. My bad, guys. Welcome to week 2 of Saturday Showdown. We are live from the home field studio. Visit homefield.com to shop for all your favorite college apparel. And if you make a purchase at homefield.com, use the promo code in all caps, Variety Sports, for 15% off of your first purchase your first time customer purchase. Sorry. Guys, now that I got that jumbled mess out, how are you guys doing tonight?
Doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Just being busy, on the road a lot for work. So just trying to get that taken care of. Counting down the days till week 0. We're getting closer and closer, guys.
Yeah, it's going to be here before we know it.
Yeah, no, geez, man. What do you got going on this week, Brandon?
I just went back to work. So we've been doing a lot of professional development stuff over the last week. Other than that, just getting prepared for the whole week, what we got going on here at Variety Sports Network.
Right. And like you guys see, we're constantly posting on Twitter. We're constantly updating the social media. We are very busy over here at Variety Sports Network. Check out our YouTube. We're almost at 350 subs. I believe we're at 345. I checked before the show. We're
47.
Very close. 347, even better. Caleb, how's everything going over at Woo Pig Weekly?
It's going pretty good. We've got our YouTube channel up and running. So we're going to start actually using video from our shows and getting that posted, and got some exciting things coming your way through our new YouTube channel that got kicked off over this past weekend.
Well, obviously, congratulations on the new channel. Guys, we've got a lot going on today. Obviously, next week is the exciting time when we really get into breaking down some games and picking some winners. I wanted to get started off this week with a big topic. Who are your guys's? We're gonna go Power 5 to start. Who are your guys's Power 5 conference winners? And let's start off with the ACC. Brandon, lead us off. Who is your pick for to win the ACC championship this year?
So for my pick, I'm gonna go Clemson.
Okay.
I think I wouldn't necessarily say it's an easy choice because you have Florida State there as well. But the Florida State's I wouldn't say they're a questionable team, but they're almost a questionable team in my eyes, just because we don't know what they're going to bring to the table yet. So I got to go with the team that's been bringing it every year, and that's Clemson.
That's very fair. Caleb, same question to you.
I was about to say, Brandon, you read my mind. I've got to go with Clemson. Kind of those same reasons. Florida State kind of looked like they turned it on in the year last year, but like Brandon said, we've got to see what they're going to bring to the table this year. They've got the Jordan Travis coming back, so I think that's big for them. So it'll be interesting to see what they can put around him and how they can start off the season.
I'm going to go against the grain of you guys. I'm going to pick Florida State to win the ACC. That Clemson-Florida State game is on September 23rd, I believe, this year. That's going to be a massive, massive game. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention, I think UNC has a dark horse chance if maybe Florida State or Clemson gets tripped up along the way.
Mm-hmm.
You never know. UNC could slide in there and maybe pull out an ACC championship. Yeah. But I think the front runners got to be Clemson and Florida State going into the season. Florida State's talent is just incredible. It's just a matter of, can these guys put it all together for a 12-game season and win the conference the conference championship.
Right.
Let's jump into the Big 12. Oklahoma and Texas's last season in the Big 12 before they leave to the SEC. Caleb, lead us off. Who do you have winning the Big 12 this year?
As much as it pains me to say it, I think Texas is going to come out on top. Their final season in the Big 12, kind of go out with a bang. Sarkisian's got a lot going on building down there, and I think they're trending right now. And I think, when you look across the conference, after what I saw from Oklahoma last year, not a ton of confidence there. They, were up and down throughout the season. And then, you've kind of got a standard with Oklahoma State that they're going to be average, but, they've yet to get over that hump. So, I've got to go with Texas.
Brandon, who you got this year?
I'm gonna go Oklahoma.
You are gonna go Oklahoma. Okay, tell us why you're going against Texas.
What coach is it Venables? I'm gonna try to say his name right. He's kind of building there. What he's built there in Oklahoma. What concerns me with Texas, and I think what could be their downfall this year. I believe Archie Manning is going to be the starting quarterback.
No, Quinn Ewers.
He's not.
Quinn Ewers is going to be the starter.
Okay, that might change my mind a little bit because I thought Manning was going to be the starter there. I don't know. I have to think about that for a minute.
Yeah, Quinn Ewers is going to be the starter. I'm going to go ahead and jump in. Texas is my pick also. With Ewers and Worthy, the wide receiver, the talent there is very, very impressive. Texas, I mean, we didn't mention them in our playoff predictions, as you guys can see. They very well could slide in there with the talent they have. Maybe a little bit of a dark horse pick to get into the college football playoff, but the talent is there. I'm going to go home and name a dark horse, though. I think Kansas has a lot of pieces to be a very good team this year. So I think Kansas is also going to be a contender for the Big 12 championship.
It's weird to hear that name be brought up because of how awful they have been.
Well, all of a sudden they've just got guys.
Yeah.
They've got players down there that can really play. Yeah. If the quarterback doesn't get hurt last year, they're in contention right there with TCU. And I mean, they're playing really good football coming into this year. If everybody's healthy, they're going to be a tough out for Texas or anybody else in that conference.
I almost forgot about TCU too. I mean, Sonny Dykes can turn any team into a championship team.
So. We're going to talk about coaches here in a little bit. Sonny Dykes is definitely one of those guys who's working his way up into that upper echelon of coaches. Mm-hmm. Let's jump over to the Midwest, the Big Ten. Brandon, go ahead with your pick for the Big Ten this year.
It's got to be Ohio State. I don't know. I mean, maybe Michigan. I could see Michigan pulling it out, but I think it's going to be Ohio State. Caleb,
what do you got?
Yeah, I'm going to kind of go the flip side there, Brandon. I'm going to say Michigan. I like the idea with Blake Corum and, you got J.J. McCarthy. I think Harbaugh's got something there, and I think that, big game every year between Michigan and Ohio State could have some big implications on not only the conference, but as well as, college playoff situations too.
I'm going to break the tie here. I'm going to go with Ohio State, as you can see in the background here. Not to say that Michigan is such a damn good football team. It actually kind of rubs me the wrong way, how good they are and how much they've beaten Ohio State in the last 2 years. But I think Ohio State gets back on track this year. I think we beat them in the big game, and we represent the Big Ten as Big Ten champions. Let's move on. Caleb, let's head down south to the SEC. Who wins the SEC this year?
For me, it's hard to that's a tough one. I got a top two at the top of my mind, but I'm going to go with Georgia. I think for me, they've got a solid foundation there defensively, offensively. I know they've got a question at quarterback. I know that's the story for a lot of SEC teams this season is who's going to be the starting quarterback after, you saw a handful leave for the NFL draft after this past season. But for me, I've got to go with Georgia. And it was a close decision between them and Alabama, as stereotypical that is, but that's, just the way the SEC is nowadays.
I totally understand. Brandon, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to not, pick the back-to-back, college football champions to win the SEC again in Georgia.
Okay, so we're all on board with Georgia. As you can see, our playoff predictions, we've got Georgia. Some of it, both me and Caleb actually have Alabama in the playoff also. Besides Georgia and Alabama, is there a team you think that could come out of left field and win the SEC? Caleb.
LSU.
LSU for you, Brandon? Is it LSU for you too, Caleb?
I would say that, but I'm also thinking, I feel like we could surprise some people. I'm going to throw Arkansas out there. I think we're severely underrated as what we've got returning. I mean, when you look at just the dynamic duo of KJ and Rocket, I mean, that's one of the best combos in the SEC as far as you've got a veteran quarterback, a veteran running back to lead your offense. The question mark for me for what Arkansas will be able to do and have success this year is our defense. We've got to be significantly better than last year, especially in the secondary and the back end, where I think we were 131st last year, which is terrible, and we were plagued by injury. But I think Pittman addressed that in the offseason, bringing in tons of defensive talent. So we'll have to see. I've heard that the first 6 days of fall camp, secondary has been looking much improved from last season. So,
okay, here's one. We'll go off on a side note one more time. Because of the question marks at Georgia and Alabama with the quarterback, I believe you guys do probably have the best duo in the SEC. I was going to take it a step further. I think you guys probably have the best duo at quarterback and running back right now. If Alabama or Georgia maybe gets that quarterback position figured out, it's more of a conversation. Jackson Dart and then the kid at Ole Miss, they're a formidable duo themselves. But I think Arkansas has the best quarterback and running back in the conference right now. So you guys definitely have the ability to be in these conversations. It's just the pedigree is not quite the same as a Georgia and Alabama yet.
It's one of those things where I try to stay cautiously optimistic because, trying not to buy into the hype so much that, it's a frustrating season, but also understanding that potential is there. We just, I think it's going to take the ball bouncing our way a couple times in some of those big games such as Alabama and LSU, but, that's not impossible.
Right. Totally fair. Okay, let's get into the Pac-12. We'll head out west for the last year of the Pac-12 as we know it. I'll start. I've been high on USC this offseason. I'm going to pick USC to win the Pac-12 conference. What do you guys got for that?
I think that's a fair choice. I'm gonna go with Washington. I think Washington has like I said last week, they have a very solid team. They're coming off an 11-2 year in an almost down Pac-12 right now. I think they have the capability of coming out of the Pac-12 and being the representative in the college playoffs.
All right, Caleb, give it to us. Who's winning the Pac-12 this year?
So for me, it's hard to go against USC and Caleb Williams. It's just there's a lot of firepower there, and I think it's going to be tough. Like Brandon said, Washington's going to be right up there. And another team I don't think you can ever really count out of the Pac-12 championship is Oregon. You got to look at Oregon. They're always right up there near the top with the talent that they bring in as well.
Right.
Yeah. I think it comes down to a 3-team race. I do think USC, Washington, and Oregon are all fighting for that top. And then somehow I think Utah will be there. I think Utah plays the spoiler again for one of those 3 teams. That just seems to be their role. I mean, look at them last year. They went out and won the Pac-12, beat USC. I mean, I like the Utah program. They just make it happen. Any other of the other conferences you guys want to touch on? I think we should probably give a shout out for Tulane. The American's not the deepest conference, but Tulane seems like they're kind of in a similar spot to Cincinnati a couple years ago, but I don't think they have the schedule to do what Cincinnati did. I think that's their real issue. I think Tulane probably runs away with the American. The Mountain West is actually pretty competitive this year. I've got Boise State winning it. I don't know if you guys feel any differently about that.
I would either say Boise State or maybe San Diego State. San Diego State's one of those teams that always seems to be sneakily good, no matter what year in, year out.
That's San Diego State. It feels like they're sports. They're just always there. Like they're in the fight. Like they're in the March Madness. They make a little bit of a run. Or in football, they win a couple games here that you don't expect. And then I always, just because their jerseys have been something I really like, the Sun Belt with Coastal Carolina, that crazy blue, almost green color is wild. I do enjoy them. They've always got solid quarterback play for the last couple of years. They've always had a good quarterback. Let's move on to just a topic that is so heavily debated, so heavily talked about. It's got the social media in a frenzy. Conference realignment. Who do you guys think has won the conference realignment. Brandon, we'll start with you.
Shoot, I'd have to say the Big 12
as a conference.
Bringing in, yeah, it's a huge conference now, and so does the Big 10. And they're up to 16 teams. I think they're both at 16 teams now, aren't they? Or one's at 14, one's at 16.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Without double checking the numbers, I believe you're correct.
What I think the difference is with the Big 12 is that they not only got power, like some of the big Power 5 schools like Arizona State, Utah. They also brought in BYU, Cincinnati, some of those teams that give the big power, the Power 5 schools some trouble. So I think that's going to add a little bit of a spark and chaos inside of the Big 12, and I think it'll be a fun year once that comes around next year.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very fun. Also, I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah, it just has it seems like it has a nice little combination of teams.
Yeah, no, I'm totally in agreement there. Caleb, who do you think is one conference realignment?
See, for me, I'm going to flip over and say the Big 10, just because they brought some big teams in with USC, Oregon, and some of those top-tier Pac-12 teams coming over. It's going to make, I feel like, the conference a lot more competitive, where it's not either, when you're looking through the conference every year, it's either going to be Michigan or Ohio State. I think it brings a little bit more competition and, threat to not be the repetitive champions every year. So that, to me, I would have to go with the Big 10.
Great choice. I'm going to actually say I think this is a win for the SEC.
Yeah.
They didn't have to go out and get anybody. They're still the best conference. And I think that's been shown this week when you've seen other teams go out and have to gobble up other schools, like the Big 10 had to go out and get 4 more schools. I think this is a win for the SEC because they didn't look desperate and have to go out and make any crazy moves, bring anybody in. They stood pat. They're letting people come, talk to them, approach them. And like the SEC commissioner said the other day, we're not going out west to try to pick up another team. We don't need to do that. And I thought I kind of liked how he stood firm there. I do think eventually they probably take a Clemson or a Florida State or somebody, but they didn't just jump out and make a move just to make a move. And I think standing pat was a solid decision. Let the chips fall, and then you get to pick who you really want because you're the SEC. So I thought the SEC really looked strong in all of this without even having to make a move.
Right. And I was going to say with that, you really think about it, I'm pretty sure when you go back and look at it, Texas and Oklahoma actually reached out to the SEC, not the SEC being like, hey, guys, you want to come over?
Right.
And on that point of, not going out west, I think the SEC has remained now the only conference that is really very regionalized, that, it's not expanded out from out west or out east, whatever it may be. It's still that Midwest southern part that's all still together.
Right.
And my point of view was this recent gold rush on teams.
Yeah.
So getting Texas and Oklahoma was a win for last year because they already, getting those 2 teams is a massive win in itself. I didn't count them for different reasons because I'm talking about the gold rush that happened in this offseason more than I did. But I like that you brought up Texas and Oklahoma because those are 2 massive wins right there. Those are brands that you would, and the fact that they came to the SEC to join is even bigger win. It's just a further flex for the SEC. They're the best conference, and there's a reason for that. You can see by what's happened and what's transpired over the last year and a half. Anything else? Conference realignment? Go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah, the one thing that I was not a fan of is when the ACC came out like, yeah, we're interested in Cal and Stanford. Like
because of Notre Dame, who's a part-time member.
Right. Yeah.
Go get Notre Dame to start, and then if you want to have that conversation, then go have it.
Yeah, I hate that Notre Dame was basically telling the ACC like, hey, you need to go get these, go bring these guys in here. Like they shouldn't have control over or something like that. And to have 2 Pacific Coast teams in the Atlantic Coast Conference makes no sense whatsoever.
I know we got called snowflakes for thinking, geography matters from our guys on the far end of the bench. There's a reason those guys are on the far end of the bench, clearly. But to me, go get Maryland back, or go get one of those Big Ten teams back now that they are probably more disposable, and let the Big Ten or somebody else take Stanford. I know Stanford's a money grab. They're they're very wealthy college and all that stuff. So that's a big draw for people, is wanting Stanford to come in because of the money. But take back a Maryland, take back a Rutgers. I know it's not glamorous, but take back a couple of those guys and build maybe that way. That West Coast, Atlantic to the West Coast is probably where I draw the line.
Yeah,
I get the appeal of Stanford because of the money, but Notre Dame coming in and calling the shots and not joining the conference kind of rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah.
But that's Notre Dame, man. That's they think they're still, hot shit no matter what. Right. Guys, got anything else on conference realignment? I think we hit it pretty strong the last 2 weeks. I thought we've done a good job talking about it. You guys got anything else for it?
I would say the only note is, the whole thing about the regional idea is, to be fair, sometimes that doesn't matter. But whenever your conferences, like especially a few of them, are named after the region that the teams are in, that's when it starts to really make sense. Like you said, the Atlantic Coast Conference, the teams that are over there, the SEC teams that are in the southeast of the country. I mean, it really, when you look at it, does matter in a sense. If you're going to name your conference after something, then the teams that are going to be playing in there need to represent that.
And eventually, I'm guessing they're going to have to do away with that because of the way things are changing. It's going to just turn into Power Conference 1, Power Conference 2, I like the labels of the SEC, the Big Ten, the Pac-12 that's dead now, but the Big 12. I like those labels, and we're clearly going away from that. So, like you said, I think I like your guys' picks for who won realignment. I think we all made good points for each one. Let's jump forward into our top 3 must-see games of the season. Let me go ahead and get mine out of the way, and then I'll let you guys give us some reasons why you made your selections. For obvious reasons, my number 1 game is Michigan versus Ohio State on November 25th. I believe that's November 25th. I have to double check. It's meant a lot the last couple of years, and I think this season it's going to mean even more. I think those playoff spots are getting even harder to get, and I don't think the Big Ten is going to get 2 teams in again this year. It's a very, very highly contested game, and in my opinion, the winner goes on to face probably Wisconsin, and that gets you into the playoff right there. So Michigan, Ohio State's my number 1 game. Caleb, what is your number 1 game going into this season?
If I had to pick, I think for me, just looking at it, it's an early, season showdown, especially as close as it was last year. I've got to go with week 2, Texas versus Alabama. That was a big game last year that came right down to the wire. It's going to be in Tuscaloosa this year, about to be a conference game starting next season whenever they play. So I think this is a game that could have implications. Like we mentioned, Texas is like a dark horse, potentially if, we pick them to win the Big 12. So I think that could be a big game for sure to start off the season in week 2.
Just to piggyback off that, if Texas comes out and beats Alabama in week 2, to me that you're got a fast track to the playoff right then and there. And then if you think about it last year, if Quinn Ewers doesn't get hurt, we don't know what happens in that game. Like that could be a completely different game. They were right there punch for punch with Alabama last year, Texas that is, until some injuries happened and some things didn't go their way. But yeah, great pick in that Texas and Alabama game. Brandon, go ahead with your number 1.
Is it next year that it moves to 16 playoff teams or 12 playoff teams?
2025, I believe, unless they move it up.
Okay.
Is it?
I was just thinking, we talk about like Alabama and Texas, whichever one of them, were to lose. We're going to see.
No, it moves to 12 before. It doesn't move to 16 yet.
So it's 12 and then 16.
Yeah.
Or 12.
Well, it's just 12 now, but I think it will go to 16 eventually.
Yeah. You're talking about like, Alabama and Texas facing off early on in the season. In a 12-team playoff, that loss isn't going to matter. It should. I don't think
does
it will.
change the importance.
It will change. I don't know. I think I'm gonna go with my number one is being Michigan at Penn State. Not only I think does it determine what's going to happen in the Big Ten, is going to happen. It's going to determine whether or not Michigan gets in, Penn State gets in, or Ohio State gets in. If those three teams, if Ohio State beats Michigan, but Michigan beats Penn State, but Penn State somehow beats Ohio State, you're just kind of in a draw. It's happened before.
Right.
That kind of thing. I think that's going to determine a lot of what we're going to see in the playoffs and what we're going to see out of the Big 12 or Big 10.
Okay, I like that. Number two, my number two pick was Texas and Alabama for Caleb. A lot of reasons you went out and said the game is very important still in this season, and I think it being in Tuscaloosa makes it more interesting too.
Yeah.
Can Texas come out and pull it's an upset? So if they can come out and pull the upset, I think that's a massive victory for Texas if they can beat Alabama. Caleb, go ahead with your second game out of the three.
Game two for me is I think a game that could potentially have effects in the SEC. I'm going with Arkansas, Texas A&M. If you look back historically, the past 2 to 3 seasons, that's been the primetime CBS game, 2:00 across the country, and it hasn't let down either. And, I think that's always a heated matchup. And I think this year is a lot more to the storyline with Coach Petrino on the A&M sideline, former Arkansas coach, now with Jimbo Fisher. I think this has this potential matchup to be, depending on the records before this game in week 5, a top 25 matchup. You just never know. And I think it could be a big matchup with the duo of KJ and Rocket with, I know A&M has a quarterback that stepped in the end of last season as a true freshman with Connor Wegman that, let's see what, Petrino does with his quarterback development, but I think this could turn out to be a big game.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this is kind of a separate narrative. It's time for Jimbo Fisher to step up. I mean, we're getting to that point. Like, you bring in all these recruits and everything. You got to start winning these ball games. And Arkansas is no pushover for anybody. I like that you went out and said that. Is that week 5? You said?
Yes. Week
5. Okay. Brandon, give us your number 2 game of the year.
So my number 2 is going to be Florida State and LSU.
Yeah.
I think that's an easy. Wouldn't say an easy one, but it should be a common choice. In my opinion, because it's going to show us what LSU is made of and what Florida State is made of, and it's a big game for both those teams right off the bat. I think it's the first week of the season. Yeah, week 1.
Yeah, September 3rd, I believe.
Yeah, it'll be a big game for both of those teams right off the bat, and it'll determine a lot with where we're going to place those teams later on in the season.
Great pick. My third game of the year is Clemson versus Florida State. Mm-hmm. I think that game decides who is, represents the ACC as the ACC champion. I think that pretty much gives us the clear picture. Like I mentioned earlier, UNC is obviously a little bit of a dark horse in the conference, but I think that game right there is what's the decider in the Atlantic Coast Conference. Caleb, what's your third and final game of the year?
For mine, I'm going to go out west and go Oregon USC. I think this has the potential to be a big-time matchup, especially with this will be the last matchup of this caliber with the Pac-12 as we know it. You've got a Heisman, candidate like Caleb Williams. You got Oregon that always fields a great team. This could be honestly winner of the Pac-12 matchup right here, and that's a Week 10 matchup. So late in the season where it could hold a lot of weight for that conference championship.
Yeah, no, I was fighting back and forth if I wanted to give the Pac-12 one of those top 3 games with it being the last season like that. So I really like that selection. Brandon, give us your third and final of your 3 top games.
So I'm actually going to go out west as well. I'm going to go Oregon at Washington.
I like it.
It's going to determine, in my eyes, it'll be make or break for Washington. If they lose that game, they're not getting into the college playoffs. If they win that game, go on to the Pac-12 championship to take on USC. I think they got a good chance of beating USC and moving on. Same with Oregon. I think if Oregon wins, it helps. I wouldn't say it helps, but it gives USC a better shot at getting into the college football playoffs.
Okay, I like those. Those are really, really good games. We're in for quite a treat. Like you said, week 0 is going to be a fun warm-up, and then we get into LSU and Florida State week 1. Whew, that's going to be fun to talk about when we get to that point. Let's get on to our final topic, guys. Our top 5 coaches in college football going into the 2023 season. Brandon, let's start off at your number 5 coach.
I'm going to go Sonny Dykes, TCU.
The way you talked about him earlier, I was like, he's going to throw Sonny Dykes into his top 5. I like the pick. I like the pick. The guy gets it done.
Yeah, I don't know how you don't. I mean, he's gone in and shown, the last couple of years that TCU isn't a slouch. Like, they're going to come and they're going to play, and they're gonna come in and kick the crap out of you if they can.
Right.
Even before that, I personally like the Horned Frog. I like TCU. I think their colors are great. The logo is fantastic. Yeah, so we kind of have one on the shirt there. Like, it all just goes together. They're like that little bit of a like ragtag where we're coming into your town to take it, basically. And it's kind of fun. They're kind of a fun team to watch.
Totally agree. Caleb, who's your number 5 coach going into this year?
So for me, this one's quite interesting, and I'm excited to see what he's going to do here. Is Luke Fickell from Cincinnati moving over to a new team now? Let's see, can he have that same success he did at Cincinnati now with a new school that's not an independent school that has a conference? So I'm excited to see what he's going to do now.
Yeah, that's a really solid pick. I'm a Luke Fickell supporter because of his time at Ohio State, his time at UC, being an Ohio guy myself. My number 5 is Kyle Whittingham for Utah. I mentioned him earlier. It doesn't matter what's going on in Utah. They're going to be there at the end of the year, and they're going to upset you, or they're going to be in a fight for the conference championship. And I think next year going into the Big 12, I think they're an instant contender to win the Big 12 next season. Just based on how they play, just tough, hard-nosed football. They get the big guys up front, and they really know how to play football when it gets to the end of the season. So I got Kyle Whittingham as my 5th best coach. Brandon, who's your 4th coach?
I want to go with James Franklin out of Penn State.
Are you a Penn State guy?
No, I don't really have I don't have a favorite team. Like I said last week, I just like watching football. What he's been able to do with Penn State and be able to keep them competitive year in and year out, bring in not necessarily big recruit, 4 or 5 star recruits, but still be able to be competitive inside of the Big Ten every year. I think that says a lot about the culture and what they have, built in Penn State or at Penn State.
Caleb, go ahead and give us your number 4.
I'm going to go with a classic here. In my opinion, I think, I'm going to throw out Mac Brown. He had such a successful career at Texas. And then, he's got, I think watch out for him with North Carolina right now with what they've got. They've got their stud quarterback from last season coming back. I think they could, we mentioned earlier, be a dark horse team kind of in that ACC race that, don't count them out. And I think he's, one of the, coaches that's been doing it a long time and knows how to do it right.
Gotcha. No, that's a great pick. Drake May. Yeah. I mean, he's probably the 2nd best quarterback in the country.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think he's better than Caleb Williams, but that's no slouch to him because Caleb Williams is very special. My number 4, I'm going to give it to Brian Kelly. I thought he's done a great job everywhere he's been. And some people were really hard on him for the move to LSU. And they're like, and he turned it around at LSU. They didn't start off great, but they ended strong. I think they're going to be a contender coming into the year. They are probably a dark horse for the playoff. I think Brian Kelly, he does a good job, and he gets talented guys to play for him. So my number 4 is Brian Kelly. Caleb, go ahead and give us your number 3 coach.
Number 3, I'm going to go Jim Harbaugh. He always had a really great Michigan team. He's got a lot of pieces coming back, this year, like I mentioned earlier with McCarthy and Corum, another great, quarterback running back duo. So he's another guy that he's got to be at the top of that list. He's been able to, consistently have great teams playing at a high level for so many years.
Yeah. Brandon, go ahead and give us yours.
Yeah, I'm gonna go number 3 is Ryan Day.
Woo. That's going to rub some Ohio State fans the wrong way. He's done a really great job, but man, it just feels like he's missing something. But go ahead.
Yeah. Offensively, I think they're a great team. I mean, they have a lot of firepower. Defensively, I think is where you're talking about that missing piece, because they do give up a lot of points, but they're able to keep up with the teams because their offense is so explosive and so powerful. Just my opinion.
I think he folds in big games, man. I think he folds. He starts throwing that ball east and west and doing too much fancy. It just, instead of you have Marvin Harrison, dude, just go down.
Right.
But Ryan Day's a hell of a coach. I just had a hard time getting him into my top 5 with some of the recent failures, unfortunately.
Right. No, that's fair.
My number 3 is actually Jim Harbaugh. I picked Jim Harbaugh also. The back-to-back Big Ten championships, back-to-back wins against Ohio State. Yeah, he got his ass kicked against TCU, but that's, that happens in the college football playoff. I think Jim Harbaugh's been a good coach everywhere he's been. He's been successful everywhere he's been. He builds programs. I mean, remember what he did at Stanford, built them up, and he's done a good job rebuilding Michigan. As much as I don't like those guys, they're a good football team. Brandon, go ahead and give us your number 2 coach. I feel like 1 and 2 are going to be the same for all 3 of us. It just depends on how you have them ordered. And if you pick some crazy guy, Brandon, I cannot wait.
I'm actually going to pick Jim Harbaugh at number 2.
So you don't have – okay, this should be interesting. Give us explain why.
Basically what you just said. He's done a really good job of building good football teams. And even the down year they had it in Michigan, they talked about, there was all the talks about him being fired and, moving to the NFL, and that was the reason why. And then to be able to turn things around within a year to get that team, into the college football playoffs, it shows a lot of what he's doing there and what he's building at Michigan, and that it's there to stay. Like, it's not going to go anywhere anytime soon.
Gotcha. It's an interesting pick. I don't know if I'd have him above the 2 guys that I think Caleb and I have, but I like it. It's different. Caleb, go ahead and give us your number 2.
Number 2, Kirby Smart. He's been really successful building up Georgia after, they kind of went those last few years. Mark Richt had some down seasons. Another one of those guys that had a lot of question marks because of just the past history of Saban assistants going on and not having a ton of success. And so he, back-to-back championships, potentially in the race for a third, he's got to be right up there with the top coaches.
Yeah. I actually gave Kirby Smart the nod ahead of Nick Saban this year. So Nick Saban is my number 2. For all intents and purposes, he's probably the best coach of all time, based on resume and all that kind of stuff. I have Nick Saban at 2. Just a hell of a resume, hell of a career. A couple down years. Let's see if he can get back into the mix of the national, the playoff. Brandon, now that you have not had Kirby Smart or Nick Saban in your top 2, it could be anybody. So go ahead and give us your number 1. It could be anybody.
I'm going to go with Eli. No, I'm just kidding. It's not Eli Drinkwitz. Even though I love what he's doing in Mizzou and bringing some of the guys that they have brought in, they're going to be a really good team in a couple of years.
Mizzou's a basketball school. Those Mizzou fans are crazy. I'm sick of hearing about them.
I don't know if I'd classify them even as a basketball school.
Yeah. It's
lacrosse, maybe? Do they play sports? I don't know. Go ahead, Brandon.
I feel the golf team is really good. My number 1 is going to be Kirby Smart.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah. But did you think I wasn't going to pick either? I mean, I like Nick Saban. I like what he does. But I've always had this superstition that he might not be as great of a coach as we all think, that he's just really good at recruiting.
Have you ever seen Bowling Green?
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
So just a thought.
Hey, that's fine.
Yeah. So I'd go Kirby Smart. With the way he's turned things around in Georgia, and back-to-back championships is hard to do in any sport, and especially in college football. It's crazy. Like sometimes we don't see, the same teams over and over win championships like that, and the success and everything that he's done in Georgia it's hard to top that.
Yeah, totally fair.
Yeah.
Caleb, go ahead and explain to us why Nick Saban's number one.
For me, I think it's just like you mentioned earlier, he's had so much success, not only just at Alabama, but you got to remember he won 2 championships at LSU before. And I think if he would have got, there's all kinds of rumors out there. I think honestly, if he would have got who he wanted to in the NFL at Miami with getting Drew Brees, he might not have been at Bama as long as he has. And he could have been successful in the NFL as well. And, on that point of, he's had a couple of down years. The comment was made at SEC Media Days that, every year you talk about it on national television, right, that, Saban's, he's down. He might be washed up. As a time for him to retire. It honestly, like somebody, I think Lane Kiffin was the coach that said it. They talk about this on national television, and then you just piss him off, and he makes a run the next season.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I said Bowling Green. I meant that's Urban Meyer. I meant Michigan State for Nick Saban. That was my bad. Yeah. Number one is Kirby Smart. I think he's earned the spot going into this season, and that's what we were discussing. Back-to-back championships, back-to-back SEC titles. Kirby Smart is my number one coach for those reasons. Yeah. He's getting the best guys in the country. He's putting the best product on the field. I think he's got a great chance to be at the three-peat this year. They're really, really good. If they get quarterback figured out, it's going to be a tough year for everybody else. Guys, next week is week 0. Very excited to actually get into football games, start making our selections. Brandon, you got anything for us before we go into get into next week?
No, it's an exciting time of the year. There's not just college football. NFL is here. Baseball playoffs are going to be right around the corner too. It's a lot going on, a lot going to be happening. I know that we're doing a lot here at Variety Sports Network to keep up with as much as we can. Yep. Outside of the college football show, there was 2 other shows tonight with Out of Your Falcon Mind. 7th Inning Stretch is live right now.
2 very, very good shows.
Very great shows.
Very good shows.
So make sure you just check us out. I mean, we really do have a lot going on. We know what we're doing. We're here. We're not going to go anywhere. And I hope you tune in. We're at 349 right now, so we can get to 350 tonight. That'd be pretty sweet.
Let's go, guys. Let's keep it up. Caleb, what do you got before we get out of here?
Not much. Just dropping, a new episode tonight. Going to finish up some stuff after this, especially with going to be, kind of all new with dropping the first episode with video on YouTube tonight. So, nice. Go check it out. Give us a subscribe. And, like Brandon said, a lot going on here at Variety Sports Network, really quality content. And, it's going to just continue to go up from here.
Mm-hmm. Guys, I'm going to echo those sentiments. Go check out the Variety Sports Network on YouTube. Check us out, audio on all those streaming platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you can find them. And we're going to keep putting out content. Keep hitting that subscribe button. Help us get over that 350 hump. And we will be back next week for week 0 predictions. And anything else? Brandon, go ahead.
Don't forget to check out Home Field.
Home Field. And that, before we get out of here, promo code, all caps, Variety Sports, 15% off your first purchase. Guys, that's all I got for us this week. I can't wait to see you guys next week for week 3 of the podcast. Let's keep it going, guys.
Sir.
All right. See you guys next week.
This is Brandon, CEO of the Variety Sports Network. Thank you again for watching tonight's show. Best way you can support us is by hitting that subscribe button, that like button, and hitting the notifications so you don't miss out on the next show.